I'm Edwin Rutch, the director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. And this is a slideshow of the session one of the 7-week course on defining empathy that we're working on developing right now. And this is an overview and outline of the session. This is the second prototype draft. Our team is going through the 7 weeks, and we're doing sort of a draft version, rough draft and prototype of the 7 weeks. And once we get through the 7 weeks, we'll be doing it again, refining it, improving it. And I think that after 2 or 3 run-throughs, we should have the course ready and be able to have participants take part. This is module 2, session 1 of the course, Defining Empathy, a Way of Being for a Better World. And module 1 is our Empathy Circle Facilitator training. That's a 5-session training. This is a 7-week training, and we're planning on developing other modules, like a module on going deeper in the empathy circle and doing deeper listening and deeper speaking. And then we're also going to create another module on using empathy circles for conflict mediation. And this is version 2 of this. The first version, this overview and outline, and we have a presentation work combined, and this version 2 is separating those two out into 2 separate videos. So since this is a prototype, a draft, do send me any information, on how to improve it. My contact info is going to be in the video description below. Okay, let's get started with the basic outline for session 1. There's 3 main sections, and we start with the full group coming together for about 30 minutes. We do some breakout rooms for about an hour and a half, small group discussions, and then we come back together again for the debrief, and that's about 30 minutes. So those are the 3 sections. I'm going to go into more depth in each of those sections. The first one is the first full group, 30 minutes. And this is just what we're going to be covering in these first 30 minutes. We'll have a short welcome from the trainers. They'll introduce themselves and share a bit about their interest in this course, and just some initial sort of explanations about it. Then we want to hear from the participants. So we'll have a participant check-in for about 15 minutes. Each person takes a minute. We hear, why are you interested in defining empathy and taking this course? And then we'll go into the course objectives, the outline for those. And then we'll have the course 7-week outline, just so you know what we're going to be doing in each of the 7 weeks. And then we'll have a presentation, and we'll introduce empathy as a way of being model. And then we'll have a description of the breakout rooms, and that we'll go into. And we'll just, the first part, welcome and participant check-ins, is pretty straightforward. So we're going to jump right to the course description. Let's go to that. Oh, that's the course objectives. Yeah, sorry. So let's go right to the course objectives. And the objectives is, 1, to develop a deep understanding of the meaning of empathy. 2 is we want to learn the empathy as a way of being definition model. It's I think a unique model. So we just want to give an overview and get everyone familiar with this model. And then we want to map the definition, the various empathy definitions, onto the experience of the empathy circle. So instead of, just having a sort of an abstract definition, we want to have like an experiential experience, so you can be really familiar with what we're meaning by empathy, and have an experience of it. And we get that in the empathy circle. And then number 4, we want to reflect on the blocks to empathy. What inhibits empathy, and just so you know what the blocks are and are familiar with them and can identify them. And then number 5, we want to have you be able to compare this way of being definition model to other definition models. There's a lot of different ways people are defining empathy, and just to be able to understand what people are meaning when they are talking about empathy. So next, we'll go into the 7-week course outline. And the first lesson is empathy, a way of being model. That's what that's this course here. And we're going to give an overview of the empathy as a way of being model and lay out the different facets of it. And then you'll also see what the facets of the model are, and how they're expressed or how they play out in the empathy circle. And then we'll have an empathy circle activity, and we want to hear what all the participants, what your definition of empathy is, just that you're bringing to the table here, and how your definition maps on to the empathy circle. Like, where do you see your definition of empathy being experienced within the context of the empathy circle? Then we go on to lesson 2, week 2, is we start exploring the different facets of an empathy as a way of being model. And we're using the diamond as a sort of a metaphor or analogy, that it's one thing, but it has a lot of different facets, in the same way that the way of being model has a lot of different facets. And the first one that we're going to explore in depth is other-oriented empathy. And this is often what people, when they say empathy, this is what they're referring to. And so we're going to kind of go into depth, and then we'll have some activities to really kind of do some experiential experiencing of this other-oriented empathy. Lesson 3 is self-empathy. We review the facet of a way of being that is directed towards oneself. And it's how we feel and sense into our own experience. And we'll have some activities for exploring that. And we'll also connect that to the empathy circle. Then lesson 4 is on imaginative empathy. And we review the facet of this way of being when we feel and sense and use our imagination, and the experience of imagining ourselves in different roles and as different people, or just any sort of imaginative use of empathy. And this is we'll also have some activities, some role play activities to actually experience this. And then lesson 5, we're going to review the relational empathy. And this is something that's not talked a lot about. Usually empathy is defined from an individualistic point of view. It's like you as an individual are empathizing with others. And what this relational empathy is, it's this facet of empathy where we're aware of the relationships that we're in, be it with one other person, a bunch of other people, but really the quality of being in this relationship, and looking at the level of empathy within the relationship. And we'll have some activities to explore that as well. And then we'll go on to lesson 6, which is the blocks to empathy. We look at some of the many ways that empathy, can be blocked. And if you see the blocks, it kind of helps you understand how to define empathy as well. If you can say what is not empathy, you can see, it kind of gives you some clarity about what empathy is and how we're defining it. Then we'll have some activities, some role plays to play out some of the blocks. And then finally, lesson 7 is our other definition models. So, and how this way of being model compares to them. And we contrast the empathy as a way of being model with the first one we'll compare is the affective cognitive empathy model. That's one of the very common ones that you'll see out there. And there's some other ones, and we'll be doing some activities to kind of explore how those relate to each other. So that should give you a pretty good introduction overall, really understanding of the nature of empathy, and give you a really good way of defining what we're talking about when we mean empathy. So let's go back to, we just covered that course objectives, 7-week overview, and then we'll be going into the presentation. There'll be a bit of a more presentation, not too much, just about empathy as a way of being. There was a video that's sent out that you should have reviewed, watched beforehand, sort of an in-depth uh, presentation of the model. And in this training, we don't want to spend too much time on sort of didactic, informational knowledge in the course itself, because you can get that by reading and watching videos. We really want to spend as much time as possible in experiential learning, and that's what we'll do in the breakout room. Breakout room description. We're going to describe what we're going to do in the breakout room, and then we'll actually go into the breakout room. And what we do in the breakout room is we'll have about an hour and a half to be in an empathy circle. And we just want to hear, how do you personally define empathy, and how does your definition map onto the experience of the empathy circle? So it's pretty straightforward. We just do an empathy circle so everyone can bring their existing understanding to the table and share that with everyone as we kind of explore this overall topic together. Then once we've done the empathy circle, we come back into the full group, and then we have the full group debrief, which is about 30 minutes. You can see down here, we go into that, and then we'll give you a little bit of the details here. We do just have a learnings debrief. So for about 20 minutes, everyone shares any learnings or insights that you have from the empathy circle that we just did. And then we might have some other, depending on time, some other additional Q&A, some other discussion for about that 25 minutes. And then we just go into the closing. And in the closing, we'll hear any final trainer comments. We review what we did in this session, and then we review what we're going to do next week. And we mention this week's assignments, because you'll have a bit of homework to do during the week. And the assignments will be emailed to you. The first thing is to fill out the session feedback form. So that takes you about 5 minutes just to give any feedback about your experience. 2 is we ask you to hold an empathy buddy call with someone in the group. So we really want to build a community of participants and give you a chance to connect with as many of the fellow attendees. And we have a 30-minute mutual empathic listening call. There'll be a description of how to do that. The third part is to read 2 articles by Carl Rogers. because next week we're going to be talking about other-oriented empathy, and this is really based on the work of Carl Rogers, and he wrote this paper, Empathic: An Unappreciated Way of Being, and there's a paper as well as a video of it. He narrated he gave a talk and they made a video of it, so you can just see the video or see the paper or both. And then there's another article that he wrote called Active Listening. So he's going into the empathic listening, active listening process, and he gives a bit of a description of it. And so the empathic and appreciative way of being paper video is about an hour, I would say, of reading or watch the video. And then that's active listening is 30 minutes. So you got a couple hours of stuff to do during the week and to be prepared for next week. So that's it. So we, as usual, we end with our jazz hands, and that's it until next time. Thanks.